Alright, so let's jump into it. Like I said in the intro, the first thing we wanted to talk about is we got our first look at Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor this week with the shaved head and everything.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I thought he looked pretty good, pretty dark, you know? I think Jesse is going to be a really good choice for the Lex Luthor, for the brooding, because we have to understand who Lex Luthor is as a character, right? He's essentially rightfully egotistical.
Yes.
You know, because he's probably one of the smartest people on the planet. I mean, definitely one of the smartest people on the planet, really. Financial genius, just genius all around, genius inventor. He's probably at like Olympian athlete level shape, and most versions of Lex Luthor, he's about at the pinnacle of humanity.
Yes.
And it's interesting that he's a bad guy because in this whole Superman mythology, most of the time he's a bad guy because he's pissed off that some alien came down and
is better than him.
Is better than him. Yeah, it's like an ego issue. And Jesse Eisenberg played the I forget.
I
the
believe
name
you're
of the movie.
going for Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark
Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network.
That's the name.
Which is the point I was going to go for, because he's played this character before.
Exactly.
Maybe not the athlete, and maybe he needs to get a bit more kind of intense with it, but it's pretty close to the character he played in Mark Zuckerberg, with the fierce intelligence and the just disconnect from the world where he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He knows who he is, he knows exactly what he wants to be, and nothing's going to stop him from getting there.
It's the classic story of it's lonely on top.
Yes.
You know, and that's just it. I mean, a Lex Luthor, it's hard for him to relate to anybody. So, of course, he's going to be looked at as a bad guy. You know, very similar to that Ozymandias character in Watchmen, who also ended up kind of being the bad guy.
What do you mean, kinda?
The world got better as a result. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about characters who understand that, and I wish more people read Invincible. I wish Invincible was as popular as The Walking Dead. It's the same author, right?
Same author.
And the same stuff happens in Invincible a couple times. This theme is repeated. And it's essentially, and it's the same thing in like Red Sun and stuff like that. It's and Injustice, but it's Superman taking on that role.
Yeah.
And it's essentially the role of like, if you're capable and if you're smart enough, and your goal is to make your home planet, a better place, you may understand that might require some sacrifices and definitely shaking up the system in order to do that.
Yes, it's the argument of the ends justify the means. And with these superpowered beings, the means are intense.
Oh,
in most of these cases.
Yeah, they're very intense. But, I mean, they rightfully take a perspective on the way things are currently done in society and shines a microscope, essentially, on everything that's really fucked up. And if you could do it, and I mean, if I had those means and I was some sort of super genius, I can't think that I wouldn't try and make the world a better place, even if I knew it might especially disrupt a lot of people who are currently in power. And he might be looked at in the short term essentially as a really bad guy. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure George Washington and those folks were looked at as huge criminals in some places of the world for a long time.
Oh, entirely, yes.
You know, so it's a matter of perspective for a lot of it. But if the ends do justify the means, and if the world does become a better place as a result of their actions, then you can't really call them a bad guy or an evil character.
Or at least entirely.
Entirely, yeah. And there's plenty of examples in both Lex Luthor and Ozymandias was a good example where it worked out, yeah.
Several versions of Superman taking the same route where works out. Injustice, I guess you can say works out until the video game starts and people say this is not freedom. It's the Captain America 2 had kind of the same philosophy with S.H.I.E.L.D. making those giant helicarriers that would go up and eliminate all these threats before they even happened.
Yeah.
And Cap comes back and says, this isn't freedom, this is fear. And to some, fear would be a small price to pay to rid the world of all these horrible things that happen. And
oh, yeah. Well, it would be brutal. I mean, yeah, it'd be like a surgery on the world. On cult, and it takes time to recover from surgery.
Yeah.
It hurts. It sucks at the time, but it might make you live longer as a result. Yeah. But going back to Jesse Eisenberg in particular, I mean, both of us, I think, agree that he's going to do just fine.
Oh, yeah.
The only criticism I've really heard about on him is that he's too young to play Lex Luthor.
That's one question I was going to ask. What age do you think this Lex Luthor is going to be? Because he was, in many of the versions of him, a captain of industry at a very young age. And you've seen references to his already established company in the previous Superman with the LexCorp trucks running around everywhere. LexCorp is already the gigantic company that'll eventually be worldwide phenomenon. How old do you think this is? Because Jesse Eisenberg looks very young.
Yeah, he's a young-looking
He's a young-looking guy. I don't know how old he is. I mean, the guy that played Peter Parker is like in his 30s.
I'd put him probably in his young 30s.
Young 30s. But I don't think he'll play a character of that. I'm thinking somewhere in the mid-20s.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be mid to late 20s.
Which I think would be fine. It's a young Lex Luthor meeting this newly established Superman. I put that right where I want to see that relationship.
I think and I think that's completely fine. I have no issue with the age. In fact, I think making him young will make his ambitions and his ego issues, if this version of Lex Luthor has those, which I'm sure he will.
It's Lex Luthor, of course.
Lex Luthor. More understandable, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at a young age, he's already conquered the world, and then this extraterrestrial being comes and shows him how small he really is.
Yeah, and fucks up his trucks and shit in a big fight. What's
fucked
that
up his trucks.
Yeah, that's not
That's
cool.
messing with his profit margin.
That's not cool. Yeah, that